Hi folks, welcome to day 9. Today we're going to be working out of section 7.5, working on factoring those binomials. Alright, so what that means is that every factor we're going to be dealing with in this episode of algebra class will be in the form x plus or minus a factor times x plus or minus a factor, meaning both of them are binomials, two terms. All right, so today we're going to be working with polynomials that are called quadratics. All right, they're called quadratics because they have an x squared as their leading term. All right, so this might look a little scary because we're getting into more letters, but if we have ax squared plus bx plus c, all right, a, b, and c are just numbers, right? So those are just numbers. Anytime that you're trying to factor a quadratic, all right, what you're going to want to do is you are trying to find two numbers that have to multiply to be c, and they add to be b. All right, so that's what we're going to be working on in this video. Next week, we will be working with factoring when a is not 1. But this week, we'll be working on just a equals 1. All right, so this video, everything we're covering this week is when a equals 1. So, which employs this main concept. You're looking for two numbers that multiply to be c but add to be b. As always, this is easiest to see with an example. So if we have something that looks like x squared plus 4x plus, so I'm creating this example as I'm working. I don't want to do 4x because I think it's going to be easier to do a different way. Let's do x squared plus 5x plus 6. All right? So that's going to be the example we're working with. So what we're trying to do is try and find two numbers that multiply to be this number, but they have to, so they multiply to be c, which is 6, and they add to be b, which is 5. All right? So the easiest way to do this is to start by listing out your factors of 6, all right? So we're going to start by listing out factors of 6. So remember, that's the numbers that multiply to be 6. So 1 and 6 always multiply to be 6. We got 2 and 3 multiply to be 6. And then you get 3 and 2 and 6 and 1. But remember, we're only including the whole numbers, and we're not gonna do repeats. Now, when we're doing factoring, since we're trying to multiply to be positive 6, technically we also have -1 times -6 and -2 times -3. All right. So those are our 4 factors. All right, after we find our factors, what we're going to want to do is we're going to add them. All right, so you multiply them to try and find c. So these are our potential options. We have to add them to find this b value. So we're looking for which of these add up to be 5. So you have 1 plus 6 gets you 7. 2 plus 3 gets you 5. -1 plus -6 gets you -7. -2 plus -3 gets you -5. All right, so that means we have found our factor. Now we know that 2 and 3 multiply to be 6 because we found them, right? We found those two numbers. We listed those two out from our factors of 6. And then we added up all of our factors of 6 to see which of those gave us 5. 2 and 3 gave us 5. So what we'll go ahead and do now is we rewrite that. So we say x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal And remember, anytime that we are working with quadratics, we're going to factor them into binomials. So in this case, and this is why I was talking about like that a value, since a is 1, that means that our first term in both of those binomials is just an x. All right, so we have x and x. Now we have also these numbers 2 and 3. One of them is going to go in our first set of parentheses, and the other one goes in our second set. Whatever number was in front of your factor is the number that you include down when you're writing it. So x plus 2 and x plus 3. All right. So if this was instead, if this sign was a negative sign, we would have had to choose our negative numbers, all right? Our negative 2 and our negative 3, our negative factors. But the b value was positive, so then we don't have to worry about it, all right? So that means our entire answer is x plus 2 times x plus 3, all right? That's the fully factored form. So anytime you're trying to factor a quadratic, you always, always, always look for what multiplies to be C, but what adds to be B. You do that by listing out your factors. After you've listed out your factors, then you add them to see what they add to. And whichever one it adds to, those are your factors that go in your parentheses. All right? Now, I'm going to make a couple of quick notes here that are going to be important. So when a equals 1, which is what we're working with, we can use this little trick, all right? So if b is positive, all right, that's that one, right? Now remind us that we're working with ax squared plus bx plus c. So when a is when a is 1, all right, if b is a positive number and if c is a positive number, then it's always going to factor into the form, I'm going to do pink, x plus your factor times x plus your factor. All right, remember that's just like what we had in our first example. All right. If b is negative, but c is positive, then it's always going to factor into x minus your factor times x minus your factor. That's what we just talked about when we would use the negative 2 and the negative 3. All right? And your third way, or your third thing, is if c is a negative, it doesn't matter what the b value is. As long as c is negative, then you're going to have x plus a factor and x minus a factor. All right? So if both of the signs if you're trying to identify the signs in the binomials, if b and c are positive, then both of your factors, both of your binomials, the signs inside the binomials are positive. If b is negative, but c is positive, then you'll have both negative. All right? So if c is positive, then b determines what the signs are in your binomials. If c is negative, then it's always one positive and one negative. All right? So positive c, then b determines whether or not they're positive or negative. But with a negative c, you get 1 plus and 1 minus. All right? Now, rather than continuing on and going through more examples, I put several examples in your written notes today. So make sure you're trying out those written notes, reading through those. And instead, since yesterday's video was so long, I'm going to cut this one a little short. So that way you have some more time to practice. And don't forget to review, because remember, tomorrow is your weekly Friday quiz. All right? Have a great rest of your day. Try and enjoy some sunshine if you can.